Good afternoon. My name is Iran Huffels, and I'm the Accelerator Program Manager at the HiiL Justice Accelerator. We're based in the Netherlands, in The Hague, and run an accelerator program for startups that are making justice user-friendly, making it easy to understand, affordable, accessible, and effective. Today, we see a new market of people-centered justice service providers that mature and scale parallel and connected to the current justice system, the public justice system that includes lawyers, judges, ministries of justice, and bar associations. Together in this new ecosystem, they deliver access to justice to people at large scale. The topic we're here to discuss in this session is user-friendly justice and user-friendly contracts. People often need and use several legal documents and contracts in the course of their lives, with real estate contracts, marriage and divorce agreements, employment agreements, etc. Small business owners need tax forms, trademarks, patents, licenses, and business compliance documents. Hiring lawyers to prepare these documents is costly for many. The startups and scale-ups we have on the panel today are making access to these legal documents and contracts more user-friendly, more affordable, and easier to understand. Today, we will talk about the tech trends in this space, drivers for growth, and collaboration with the public justice sector. It is my pleasure to introduce you to the panelists, all of whom have been nominees or winners of the HiiL's Innovating Justice Award in the last 10 years that we've been supporting justice innovation. First on the panel, we have Oleg Zaremba. Oleg is a senior software engineer, and he is the CTO of Axdraft. Axdraft was part of our 2018 cohort and also the 2019 cohort of Y Combinator. It was recently acquired by Onnit. Axdraft is a document automation software. And in fact, its slogan is draft legal documents 70% faster. Delegate more to business teams with results in 2 weeks. Oleg is joining us from Kiev. Also from Kiev, we have Max Baryshnikov. Max is a lawyer and also a member of JustIf AI, an expert group working on implementing artificial intelligence in justice systems. Max is the founder of Cryptonomica, my apologies, and Cryptonomica uses a network of public notaries in different countries who verify cryptographic keys to be used for signing and encrypting documents, especially electronic contracts. From the Netherlands, where I am also, we have Willem Wiegers. Willem is a lawyer, and he is the author of several books on contracts and contracting. Willem is the founder of vAgree. vAgree has been around for 15 years, and it accelerates contract flow with this enterprise contract automation software with integrated contract lifecycle management. vAgree also moderates an active and dynamic LinkedIn group of 44,000 people, been active for 10 years, where they discuss drafting contracts on the platform. Welcome. Today, our time is short, so I'm going to go right to it. But before that, I want to remind the audience that they can put their questions in the Hopin chat box. I have another screen where I can keep an eye on that, and I will ask your questions at the end of the session. Okay, let's get to the questions now. So the first question we have is on the key tech trends. So our question to the panelists is, which key current tech trends do you see impacting user-friendly contracts? In your own space, how do these tech trends relate to your company's service? And how do you see this changing in the future? Let's go first. Let's go first maybe to Oleg, and we go from there.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Super happy to be here. In terms of trends impacting the justice sector, I think that what everyone has on their mind is machine learning, or AI, artificial intelligence, as someone likes to refer to it. I think this is a huge part. It's going to be super important. I think there are hundreds and hundreds of startups currently trying to chip away at this very difficult task of trying to either automate, predict, or somehow correlate hundreds of contracts that are currently out there. I think this is definitely important. I'm sure that both William and Max are going to have these on their minds. We experimented with machine learning in Extract for quite a bit. There are two main things that you can do: basically try to predict something and try to analyze something. So two things that lawyers are very good at. And the prediction part we found to be quite useful. It's fairly easy to do. It has good results, and also the only thing that we have noticed is that it can never act as a final trigger. It can only act as a suggestion to an actual user, because there are legal complications if some kind of program performs a decision, and B, any kind of algorithm which is powered by machine learning can never be 100% sure. So the best things that we have seen are basically powered recommendations about what you would like to do, what answers you'd like to take. And another part is analysis of existing contracts, especially any tasks that is too big for a human to do or just too complicated. We can have a chance that this can be done by a machine sometime soon. So far, it has been done for, I would say, searching contracts or extracting metadata from contracts. The most difficult part is to learn legal language for any kind of natural language processing model. It's very difficult. And B, definitely a more complicated thing is it's difficult to understand. Like, if you've ever read a contract, you know that it's difficult to understand for a non-lawyer. It's even for a lawyer, sometimes it's difficult to understand if it's specifically drafted to basically make you uncomfortable reading it. That for machine is very difficult to do. And sometimes you do have to extract the values and the understanding of the contract from this hidden context. I think there's going to be quite some time until we are able to fully do this automatically. But the jumps that we have done in the last years are incredible. So I'm sure that this is going to happen for sure.
Yeah, thanks for that. I saw on the screen that the others were also nodding their heads. Let's go to Max and see how you see the tech trends with your work.
Well, you see, as a practical lawyer in Ukraine and other countries, I can overemphasize that among all technologies available or at a high level of development in the field of law, artificial intelligence should certainly be called number one legal IT phenomenon. But by itself, without creating the necessary infrastructure, training user lawyers and changing the basic legislation, it's not able to change the situation. It is still not a solution, but rather a tool for such a decision. We in Cryptonomica, from the very beginning, are trying to find the right question and then prepare right answers, including technical issues. Among them, international user-friendly and legally binding online verification, online arbitration, KYC verification, third key decision for smart contracts arbitration, and right to enforce judgment providing for arbitration court. It is absolutely possible to do with already existing technologies. When I heard something new about artificial intellect, or in medical law, or in legal IT purely, I always remember that 10, 20, or 30 years ago, also a lot of lawyers, a lot of engineers read and think about artificial intellect, but still we have no complete and final decision, just the way we should go through to get it. So I think that the main problem for now, not the technology, the main problem is human resources. The main problem is our psychology, I mean, not only lawyers, but also our clients, also companies, organization, and not the last one, Minister of Justice, National Minister of Justice, and national legislation. I can show the example of Ukrainian legislation that by 2021 has no even term like artificial intelligence, something like this. So it's problem for national legislation. It's problem for international law. It's also sometimes problem for engineers. If you talk about friendly contracts, I don't know whether contracts should be friendly for its users, but contracts should be legal, reliable, legally bind, and enforceable. So if any technology, doesn't matter which exactly, will support all these points, it will be good technology. If not, irrespectively, is it include artificial intelligent things or not, it doesn't need for the market, it doesn't need for the certain state, especially for the states with weak legislation, like third world countries, like countries that just developing right now. So it's important much more for development countries for today than for United States or Great Britain. But surprisingly, especially in these countries, these technologies are much more reliable, based on old national law. So I think we will have an opportunity to speak about it more. Thanks.
Excellent. Yeah. Thanks for making that point. It's interesting to see that it's we're going beyond the tech actually and its implications, and it's how welcoming it is or not, or how welcoming the sector is to it or not. Let's go to Willem. What is your take on this?
Let me share my screen, if I may. I've made a sort of quick presentation that might clarify, and you should not be watching my inbox, but
it's good.
I think that the future of contracting essentially turns around two aspects. The one is contracts become more data-driven, which means that we have to move away from language to data in a sense. And I think that time becomes more of the essence in the contracting process. And the two elements, data and time, translate easily into what we have called connected, being connected, and collaborative contracting. I think those two are the dimensions of contracting. Connected, and if you then look into how that translates into a process, early day contracting, probably still even the traditional way of contracts, means that you could have, and it depends of course on the type of transactions you are working on, that you have a response time of some 30 days before you get to a first draft agreement. And if you are able to improve that contract creation process, you can actually reduce the response time to 20 minutes, which basically is possible if you take out the lawyer in the process, at least to some extent, which means that you drive away from the contractual language and basically start creating a questionnaire with the questions that are actually behind the contract text. And that is something, answering those questions, that you can do with the people who are the actual stakeholders or the owners in the contract. And if they are involved at the very beginning, then you have response time reductions, which are very considerable. Where a traditional lawyer would draft 12 to 24 hours for a large transaction, if you automate that with our solution, for example, for large transactions, you would end up with an agreement within 2.5 hours or so. And of course, if your contracts are much smaller than this, then the traditional way of contracting is still that it takes you some hour or so. But if you automate that process, you will reduce it to a few minutes only. Now, then you get to a considerable accelerated contracting process, and that is only on the contract automation side, so only on the contract creation part of the whole process. Now, if you come to contract management, I think Oleg was correct in saying that data extraction becomes key to your contracting processes. What you actually do if you have an automated contracting process, so contract automation initially, you gather your data, at least in the base, already during your first draft agreement. And what we see for the traditional way of contract lifecycle management is that those initial data don't necessarily change that much anymore. So if you have a system that is connected, where you have those data exchange from contract creation, contract lifecycle management, you take out a burden which is practically huge for the traditional way of contract management. Now, that having a system in place basically triggers your notifications and everything, and basically you would build a system that is fully automated and that basically provides for a platform where you have the full life cycle from contract creation to contract life cycle management. And then if you expand on that system and you add components like artificial intelligence, you get really to phenomenal results. And actually, the machine can take over much of this work. We have also artificial intelligence as an engine underneath. And indeed, the promise here is phenomenal. I agree with Oleg that there is still a very long way to go for everyone who steps into this. Really a long way. It's probably too promising, but you can only get there if you follow what Richard Susskind yesterday said about courts. It doesn't make any sense to say, okay, we are now at the level where we're happy. Let's wait here on this level of innovation for a few years. You have to step into it and you have to take the steps. It doesn't make sense if you want to involve the people in your process. You have to build on collaboration, and it doesn't make any sense if you wait for something to happen or a market leader to step in, because ultimately I think the market will be full with solutions, and the world will become really data connected, data integrations, and much more collaborative in contracting processes.
Yeah, thanks for walking us through that flow of how this actually happens and explaining how this works for the different players in this, especially the users of these contracts. I want to go to the part of the question where we look at the future. You know, I'm curious, you know, Max, you said something that this is not a technology issue. We are talking about the tech trend, but it is really not about tech itself. And it's more about psychology and also the human resources. So I was wondering if you could maybe expand on that in terms of where the future looks like. If we were to look now until 2030, what would that look like? What in terms of the tech trend, but also the openness to this tech?
You see, for sure, I can explain for many, many hours, not even minutes, how our Cryptonomic.net startup use different technologies, how we use a digital signature, how we provide online KYC verification. It's possible. We have clients from over 100 countries in the world. You can see in our site it's possible, all data. But I would like to overemphasize text from UNIDROIT principles of international commercial contract. They contract may be applied when the parties have agreed that their contract be governed by general principles of law and lex mercatoria or the like. That's, as for me, is a future. Lex mercatoria, independence from the state national legislation, that's the future. And technologies that from time to time change. Remember, a few years ago, everyone tried to use blockchain technology in their startups. And well, and what? Does jurisprudence or justice throughout the world change dramatically in these years? No. Why? because I already talked about psychology and people, humanity. Unfortunately, we doesn't change as much and as good as technology in a few years. So if we talk about technology, we should understand that every technology should be friendly for its users. And it's absolutely right. I am absolutely supported. Not only me, but all my partners in Cryptonomica, Mr. Victor Ageev and others. So we should once more tell that if we talk about contracts, parties of the contracts should sign only once using a digital signature. And in this digital signature should be already court or already arbitration clause, already online arbitration, on already opportunity to enforce future such arbitration court future decision through the bank account, all in one. And we in Cryptonomica right now are working hard in providing such services for our clients. I think it's possible. A few weeks ago, we participated in one event with Swift. You know Swift, yeah. We talk about banking. They have a new ISO 20022100 technology with messaging. I think it will be possible to use for our decision also. But nevertheless, technology is very important. But the main idea to give users of such contract, to give parties of such contract opportunity to do only one thing, to sign, and that's all. All other should be done through the technologies, not with additional cost, not with additional time. That's our idea.
Okay. So I'm curious, Oleg, how do you see this, sort of the future of this? Especially also, Max kind of connected us to what we wanted to talk afterwards in terms of the working or collaborating with the public sector as well. And I know that you haven't done much with the work with the public sector. How do you see this trend in the coming years?
I partially agree that this is a problem of people being either afraid or not completely ready to accept the technology, but also I can't fully agree with that because a lot of the people are open to using something new, which specifically solves their problem. Every grandma that I know is in some way using a smartphone, either to call someone or to look for some videos. Anyway, that solves a particular problem for her, and she's willing to learn. And I think the trend that is going to happen is that we're going to have more smaller but extremely focused companies which are going to be fixing a particular issue for a particular kind of people. Right now, especially we can see this in governments, there's usually a centralized platform that you can go and you can see, and usually that platform is responsible for a lot of things, and it's quite difficult for it to do all of the things very well. I think we're going to see this break down a little bit in a good way, and we're just going to have more individual companies, maybe even government companies, government projects, doing one specific things, but doing it really well, being focused, taking some of the cues from the giants of the tech world, like the Facebooks and Instagrams, which are extremely addictive, dangerously addictive, and these technologies can be used for good, and they can be used to enhance the experience of the users at the other end, so that they like the solution, they want to come back, and they just have positive feedback about it.
Okay. Willem, what is your take on this? And your context is maybe a little bit different in different countries. So how do you see this?
I'm not sure if the country really matters. We have our customers all across the world. And when I started Weebly 15 years ago, we had the luck of working with the largest multinationals throughout that entire period. What I see as a trend won't be really a revolution. it's really a continuation of what has been happening over the past, what I have been seeing happening over the past 10, 15 years within WeAgree. We run front with the development technically scene, but as we do it with several customers in parallel, we of course see the big picture of where it goes within a short period of time. And it's actually really going fast. It's we do see that the technology for us, I mean, it's open source technology, so you basically activate the technology, but we really see that the replacement of the traditional contract creation and the traditional sending of a first comment, so a second draft track changes document, to happen already within this year, largely automated, and that's really phenomenal to see happening. So while it's not going to be a revolution, we do see that steps are taken fast. We do see many more people entering the field, and I think that's really a good thing. 10 years ago or 15 years ago, when I first spoke to Sam Muller and Maurits Barendrecht of HiiL, it was really a very different world. We have the big multinationals who have their particularities in the processes of their contracting. Us being on board with them helped us a lot in designing our technology. I think the key focus, only 4 or 5 years ago, it became really visible that one of the big hurdles or the big challenges is to get everyone on board. If your technology is exceptionally successful, still you will see with your successful customers that there are laggards in the team, and you should also get them on board. That is a challenge. The change management aspect here is to focus on what works and not to consider and lay back and watch how others solve the problems, because everyone has their own particularities, because everyone has people in their team. So what we see for the near future, we are closely working together with our customers. Almost every customer, at least the large ones who come on board, have their own wishes, which basically challenges us to continue innovating. And it's exciting to see where user friendliness is a key to the ultimate solution.
It's so what I hear from everyone is that there's the trend looks positive for the future, that there are more and more people getting into this space, and there is more openness. And so I wanted to sort of, you know, at the end, Willem, you mentioned that you work with your customers. So I'm curious to see what drives the growth of your business, and what sort of holds it back. What are some of the sort of the drivers, and also maybe the obstacles of it?
Well, it's very exciting to see how it happens. I think the big drivers are basically the pressure that the general board puts on the legal department to cut the cost, to optimize processes, essentially. I think optimization of processes, internal process, is key altogether. This is not only a legal thing, all departments within corporates are working on it. It's something of nowadays that you optimize your processes. So here is one of the key drivers. The reality has been, in most of the cases that I've seen passing by, that it's not that you cut your cost and that you have layoffs, but it is rather that you automate processes and other works comes to you. We've seen customers who negotiate contracts 1 per year or so, automated their contract creation process, and in all of a sudden within the first year created 200 contracts. Now, if that is going to happen, you will face different challenges in your contracting process that you need to optimize as a next step. And if you manage from 1 contract per year to 200 contracts per year automated and signed, then a different dynamic comes into play, because your colleagues will see that suddenly the legal department starts to get a lively business component, which basically means that they're going to come to you more often. And if they come to you more often, your volume, and we've seen that with customers, double in the second year and triple and double once again in the third year. And if that is going to happen, then what you will see in reality is that there is much more compliance in your contracting processes. So eventually you won't have less disputes because there are more transactions and relationships embodied in an agreement.
Yeah, I hear that it's actually the solution itself that is driving the growth, and how the quality of the solution, its efficiency, is what driving the growth. Max, I think you wanted to come in there. What about you? How has it been in your?
Yeah, I can add only just a few words. All our clients wants the one thing: money. They want to become rich. They want to become victorious, and it's simple. To help them, we should provide them as much as possible friendly technologies, friendly contracts. What does it mean friendly? It doesn't mean more technological. It means it's more about interface. It's more about opportunity to use it. User-friendly technology should be. For example, my mom, she's 81 years, and a few months ago, she changed Android for iOS just because of features. She doesn't need a lot of features. She really need one point, and that's all, to do everything she wants. And our clients want to use just one thing, sign, for example, contract, and that's all. They doesn't want any problems. They doesn't want to go to the court. They doesn't want to prepare some additional documents or show that they are officially has certain authorities. No. They just want and ask us to provide the only one service. I do one thing and that's all. And I will do these things as much as possible. You talk about 100 or 200 contracts per year and become rich. And it's possible using our technologies. So we just need to provide such technologies in friendly way, not only in high level of techniques, but also in friendly, understandable way. That's my addition to your caller. Thank you.
Yeah, and I love, Max, how you described it, that you are making your clients victorious, that feeling of being victorious.
I spent 20 years in law, so
that user focused is really the fantastic approach to this, in my opinion. How has it been, Oleg? And maybe you can also explore a little bit some of the obstacles also in a growth path.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with William that the most successful implementations are the ones, like, for example, we have customers who have been with us for 4 years. And while they have started with an extremely small contract and taking a risk on a newly founded company, they have since expanded their contract tenfold, and they are excited about all of the new features that we release. And we actually rely on their opinion a lot when releasing something new. We want to get their feedback to make sure that this suits them, and there's a high chance that it's going to suit all of our other customers. The obstacles that we've had is, which we didn't really know how to do very well, especially when we started, is saying no to a lot of the customers. And it's quite difficult because you're a business, you're trying to make money, you're trying to get more customers to use your product, but sometimes it's just not a good fit. Or sometimes the amount of work that you have to perform for a particular client is going to throw you off balance or throw you off track for months to go. In that case, you have to take all of your charm and basically understand that this is one part that you have to say no. You've mentioned in the previous question, working with governments. We have tried that. Unfortunately, we have not been very successful so far. Maybe because we've been a younger company, and it's difficult, like the processes and especially sometimes the requirements are just too difficult for us to handle. But also the process usually moves slow. So it's much easier for us to implement in a company when there's a so-called champion, right? So someone who really likes what you do. Like, they help you go through doors, they help you fight bureaucracy if there is any. And we have struggled to find some of those especially in bigger governmental structures, because it eventually, I believe for them, it leads to responsibility if Extract doesn't work, if it doesn't work out, and then it's just not a good look on them. So they're risk averse, I would say.
And looking at this, I mean, you touched on it a little bit, Oleg, there, in terms of the pathway forward in working with the formal, or not the formal, but maybe the public sector of the justice sector, at least looking at it in the context of Europe. We are at a European conference. So how do you think that there is room for collaboration or potentially partnership, given this backdrop of sometimes it being challenging to work with governments? You know, Max already mentioned earlier about maybe working independently from the public sector. So what are some opportunities there? Is there an opportunity there? Should there be more collaboration and partnership? And what would that look like? Maybe Oleg, you can elaborate on this.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's if you really want to change something, you have to work with the government. In most cases, because they still control the legislation, they can help you out a lot. The difficult part is finding this middle ground where you would feel that you are adding value, they would feel that you are adding value. The two things that I would say are the focus, for example, at least for us here, is very often we come across a situation where governments or a particular structure, let's say, it tried to build a solution like ours, and because they either did not have the time, the resources, or enough dedication for that, it didn't quite work. It didn't solve their problems. But now there is this internal solution that we have to beat, and basically they say, "Hey, okay, you do great, but we have something in house." So first advice is probably to buy versus build. If there is something that does what you need, and it does it well, then just buy it, or work together with them. Usually, especially us, for example, we are extremely flexible on pricing to governments, especially if this is a cost that we also like to support either through HiiL or directly through Extract. So I would be more open to approaching a buy versus build mentality. And another thing that we have found extremely useful is that in contracts, very often you rely on a lot of open data or data which government actually owns, right? So something like about, I don't know, company data is open almost everywhere in the world right now, but there's lots of that. Like there's tax data, there's like criminal records, and some of that data is accessible, right? Either via a letter or an email to a particular organization. They say, okay, yes, of course, please confirm your identity, and we're going to give you the data. It helped us a lot to have this data available through a nice API. So basically that we can integrate it into our product. That way, our clients have like the freshest data they can possibly have. And we are also relying on government, where often those APIs are also paid. So government is earning money on that. And I think this is a very good way to go, because that would enable more and more solutions to basically bite into this huge amount of data that government is currently sitting in. I understand completely that some of the data is not to be used publicly, right? There's a lot of resources that have to be guarded either by particular organizations or by some kind of verifications. But I'm sure that working together, we can identify particular sets of data which can and will be very helpful to the new generation of startups as well as the big corporations.
Mm-hmm. So what I hear is that a big area of collaboration is that the government makes those data that you need available to you in an easy and accessible way using APIs. What is your take on this, Willem? Do you agree, or is there something else that you think that could be a possible area of collaboration?
Yeah, I agree with that generally. I think the exchange of data becomes more and more important, and we built our API together with our launching customer, I think some 6 or 7 years ago, which was very helpful. What I think burdens that we have to overcome, we have one company here in the Netherlands who have been asking me over the past 15 years to give a presentation every 1.5 years. and then it remains silence, and they are afraid that we agree is too small, and then they decide not yet to start with us. I think that is, we're not following that because it doesn't help. I think what is key, and that is regardless of whether it's a company or a government, what is key is that on the other side, you have someone who will become your ambassador. There's a nice video on YouTube. I think it's about a dancer somewhere in Mountain View. Who accelerates, who creates a whole dancing mass. Actually, what you need is your ambassador. So with your customer, you will first need someone within your customer who's actually going to pick up the project on their side. And as long as they are not there, it doesn't make any sense to put any energy into it from our side. And that has always been our philosophy. And I think people recognize that. And when we have the larger multinationals actually coming in with the right people, or with at least one person to pick up a small project, and it always starts small, then what can light is a big fire. And that's really exciting to see happening. What I have found always crucial for your success is that you take into account how implementation works. I think this is a hidden cost factor which can be exceptional. If it doesn't work on the backside of your tooling, if the admin tooling is not easy to understand for normal lawyers, for people who are just a bit handy with computers, then that is not enough for your success. It might help you in your first stage, but in the second stage, if your first follower has left your team and your stakeholder group, then other people have to pick it up, and they need to be able to do that quickly and almost intuitively. So that's what we have been focusing on always, because implementation is key to get not the first generator of early adopters to use the technology, but basically have your technology being used mainstream. And to see that happening is really exciting. There you really get compliments, because you get the compliments from people who don't have the affinity necessarily with technology, but feel that your technology is actually supporting them rather than the other way around.
Okay, wonderful. We have 2 minutes till our session ends, and I want to wrap up with a question that I think you often get, all three of you perhaps get from your lawyer clients. It's a question from Maria Jose Silva, who's asking about how your services are substituting the work of legal professionals. Is that the way forward? Any of you, if you have any thoughts on this, we wrap up with that. We've just got 1 minute to go.
Very simple answer. Our Cryptonomica project help and provide lawyers throughout the world an opportunity not to mail, not to use paperwork, not to use documents in paper form. So life of its lawyers become better and better. And I should add, as Ronald Reagan said once, that government isn't a solution, it's a part of a problem. So especially in third world countries where government are weak and corrupted, please be very, very polite and understandable working with such governments. Thank you.
Wonderful. And that's it for our session today. I want to thank Oleg, Willem, and Max for joining us, and I want to thank the audience who were commenting also in the hop-in. I hope you enjoy the rest of the conference, and bye-bye from me. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you.